The Game Kitchen's 2D hack-and-slash platformer Blasphemous stormed onto Kickstarter this May and proceeded to cut its way through just about every stretch goal en route to raising $333,000 US, which is an impressive feat for an indie game. The game recently headed into an extended backer period on BackerKit through the end of August, and is up for further funding for those who missed out on a chance to back and secure early access as the game is developed. We went hands-on with the backer's aesthetic prototype demo ourselves to check out the content used to create the game's dynamic trailers and put some of our early impressions down. It must be noted, as this is just an aesthetic demo, a lot of the core gameplay is not fully fleshed out, so much is subject to change. The demo does not really set a vivid picture of the story, in fact, none at all, but this is just a prototype, and no doubt there will be more cutscenes and exposition later. As is, the official lit on the game sets it in the land of Orthodoxia, where religion reigns supreme and churches outnumber people 2 to 1. You come to in a hellish territory during the age of corruption as the Penitent One, a rogue nomad hunting evil with only your trusty sword. You are the last survivor of a group known as the Silent Sorrow, who were all condemned to be tossed into the abyss of the eternal grief. The story will be presented through clues in the level, similar to Dark Souls. Much of the game and its visual design and cultural core is inspired by the Spanish city of Seville, and the dark and arresting visuals are all handmade pixel art. The setting is incredibly moody and very engrossing. The land that you are journeying through is crumbling and decaying and feels as oppressive as Demon's Souls did. This is reinforced by the enemy design. Although there were only 3 different foes in the demo, each one is crafted carefully to reinforce the brooding setting, right down to a baddie that self-flagellates. Can't get much more orthodox than that. The setting is the strength of the game so far, and even in its prototype state, it's already an engrossing world to be a part of. It grabs you and compels you to explore every nook and cranny, and death doesn't feel like a discouragement. The foreground and background are littered with the crumbling ruins of a world that binged on dogma, and if the metaphor is blatant, it's at least effective. Studying the environment will be a fun exercise in deciphering the truth of this world. The gameplay is very straight up Castlevania style. It unfolds in 2D, and you explore the map in your standard left, right, up, and down levels. Along the way, you'll be engaging in a mix of platforming and combat. The platforming is tight and responsive, which is a must for any 2D side-scroller/Vania. There isn't a lot of give with the movement, and that lets you make some precise jumps and landings. So far, there is a clear attention to challenging platforming, and the controls definitely do not get in the way of precision. That's a good thing, because some of the jumps and maneuvers really have to be nailed, lest you fall to your instant death into a pit of spikes. Further upping the challenge of the platforming is the careful placement of enemies on ledges, precipices, or hidden above or below your initial sightline, only to appear as you cross or land. This introduces a harrowing bit to the platforming, especially when you're negotiating your way through a precarious descent, unsure of whether an enemy is lurking to ruin your drop. You are forced to be prepared to attack in mid-air at a moment's notice, which is a fun way to make sure you're not mentally checking out during even the simplest of hops. The combat of the game is the most basic mechanic in its present state. It's standard hack and slash with, for now, no variety, either in moveset or weapon type. You have your trusty sword and that's it, and it's capable of basically comboing its very limited moveset infinitely. There's no stamina bar governing your actions at all, so you're free to mash the attack button to your heart's content. I'm not sure if stamina is something that's going to be introduced in the final game, but if it's not in the cards, it may be worth looking into. Right now the infinite attacking really just lets you spam your attacks, and as long as you get the first hit on an enemy, you can just mash until they're down. It definitely runs the risk of cheapening the game depending on how things develop. That is if difficulty is something they want to include. Even so, it could reduce how interesting an enemy can be if they all go down in similar fashions. Again, it's early, so it's hard to make a complete judgment, and perhaps more challenging foes, such as ones that poise through attacks or block, would equalize things a bit. Not included in the demo, but said to be coming, is Martyr's Excommunication, where you will chain your encounters, and if you do so well enough, you'll unlock a power boost that will make you almost unstoppable. It sounds like a fun wrinkle to mix up the formula. With the trusty sword narrative woven into the game's official marketing, it's hard to get a sense of the eventual itemization in Blasphemous. There's no loot in the demo at all, be it weapons, armor, or consumables. Presumably itemization will be included, and I'm more curious as to whether there will be weapon variety, or at least the ability to change or customize movesets. If not, that could become tedious for gameplay and players may lose interest using a single sword with a limited and unchanging moveset. It need not be as dynamic as Dark Souls or genre-made Dead Cells, but a few more options will go a long way. It does bear noting, however, that the swordplay is solid, the reach is sensible and consistent, and you feel like you land a hit when you should, and when an enemy punishes your miss, it feels fair. It may be button mashy, but doesn't exactly encourage recklessness. The boss present in the prototype is the biggest tease ever, as the demo finishes before the fight begins, much to my chagrin. There was potential epic battle written all over this steer/goat-like distorted monstrosity. It had all the makings of something out of creepy religious horror and seemed right from the bowels of hell. This is where I suspect the game will hit its combat high point, as the bosses shown in screenshots so far are not only impeccably designed, but seem to be formidable opponents. Visual and audio is another area where the game shines. The game is done in pixel art, yes, but with a beautiful level of detail. There's wonderful shadowing, color, textures, beveling, you name it, all in a retro sheen. The enemies, locations, and main character are all distinct and it works very well. It's transporting. The audio is equally haunting, with strained winds, tormented breaths, and isolation all captured wonderfully. It's minimalist, yes, because there's not a score just yet, but it adds a spot-on horror element. Your footsteps and the slashing of your enemy's flesh ring loudest in this world, and they carry on the howling wind. This is very immersive and very Soulsborne. Blasphemous has some serious potential to worm into people's minds with a gripping setting and haunting design presentation. If it can take that initial hook and sink its teeth in further with some more varied combat and itemization, it has a chance to hang out in the upper levels of the resurgent 2D genre, alongside recent hits like Salt and Sanctuary and Dead Cells. Right now it definitely cuts the flesh. Time will tell if it penetrates to the bones. If you like what you saw, be sure to give the video a like and subscribe to find out when we drop new content. Thanks for watching.